Okay, Nate, the first question that I have is for a lot of our listeners and people that would be listening to this, obviously, may not know a lot about the StarCraft universe and StarCraft lore, and I was wondering if you could explain a little bit about what the book is and what it's about, and why they might be interested in reading it.
Sure. Well, the book. It takes place in the sort of a side plot to the main StarCraft games. It focuses on the ghosts, operatives, the assassins for the Terrans, and there was a game Blizzard was developing called StarCraft Ghosts, and ended up not happening. But they are developing other projects around that franchise, and there was a book before mine written by Keith DeCandido called StarCraft Ghost Nova, and this is a sequel of sorts to that. And so it takes place in the StarCraft universe, focuses on Nova. Years after the first book was sort of her origins, her youth, growing up, and her backstory, and then this is her as a full-fledged ghost battling Spectres, which is the sort of super ghost, if you will, ghosts on roids. In this case, terrazine, which is a substance that sort of enhances ghosts' psionic abilities. And so this is a story about. It also makes them a little unstable. So this is a story sort of about ghosts versus super ghosts, and what happens to some of the characters that I think StarCraft players know and love, at least side characters, Nova, Gabriel Tosh, and Kath Toom, and a bunch of others from Ghost Academy and some of those earlier properties.
Now, how did you get involved with the Spectres model?
I wrote a science fiction novella called Prime. It was one of my first sci-fi works, and editor at Pocket read it and really liked it, and asked my agent at the time whether I'd be interested in writing for them and for Blizzard, and spoke to Blizzard, and they read my stuff and they loved it, and so I said, geez, this sounds great. I was familiar with StarCraft. I wasn't a big gamer, but I knew the franchise, and I certainly knew the passion of Blizzard fans and how successful Blizzard's been with all their games. And it sounded like a really fun opportunity. So I got involved and spoke with them, and spoke with Blizzard and Pocket, and we just clicked right away. And started brainstorming, and one thing led to another, and here's the book. So it was a really neat process for me and my first experience in the media tie-in world, but definitely not my last.
And as you stated, and as Chris Metzen revealed at the San Diego Comic-Con this year, at StarCraft Ghost Spectres, it's a novelization of the StarCraft Ghost video game. Did you have any creative freedom, or did you have to follow any kind of guidelines that were set in stone with this book? I did and I didn't. I think it's not an exact sort of novelization, per se. I'm not familiar with the exact plot of the video game, but it certainly plays in that universe. And there were some, as it would be, I guess, in working with any sort of media tie-in franchise, there were some restrictions, some limitations, some things that I couldn't do, obviously based on what they wanted to do and the story that was already out there, and so on and so forth. But I didn't feel completely restricted by that or hemmed in any way. I mean, we were pretty creative with what we did. In which ways was the novelization of the game adapted to fit StarCraft 2?
There were some minor tweaks, I think, with things that they wanted, to do at the time, and things that changed on the fly. But nothing. And by the time I got involved in writing this book, StarCraft 2 was pretty, pretty much ready to go. So Again, apart from some minor things here and there and some things that we thought we might be able to do and then ended up deciding we couldn't, it was pretty much a done deal. So I kind of knew the story. I kind of knew what was going to happen down the road from the timeline of this book, and we had a pretty good idea. So there weren't any huge surprises.
Okay. Who are the most notable characters in this novel aside from Nova and Tosh?
I think Kath certainly plays a huge role and is a really interesting character. Leo certainly plays a role. Haller, who's I don't want to give too much away. He's obviously a major character in this book, slightly different than some of the fans who are familiar with his backstory or a little bit familiar with who he was going to be or whatever might be surprised. But yeah, those are the really major characters in this book, and of course the Emperor is there, and there are a lot of others. But I'd say it's really Nova, Tosh, and Katsoon's story.
Yeah, you're talking about Jackson Holler there. When StarCraft Ghost, the game was revealed, one of the support characters in the game was Colonel Jackson Holler, commander of the Nova Squadron. Without spoiling too much, what can you tell us about his participation in your Spectres novel?
Well, he has a huge role, and that's kind of all I want to get into. I don't want to spoil things for people. So he's Nova's. He's commanding the squadron that Nova is attached to, and he is so he's overseeing a lot of the strategic moves during the book and as they go after Spectres and try to investigate what's going on with the various terrorist attacks that they have been experiencing and the disappearance of ghosts around the galaxy there, around the world. Or the universe. He's in charge of investigating that, and he plays a major role in the story for sure.
And which motives drive Tosh to rebel against Minsk and to seek Terrazine gas?
Sorry, what was the last part?
Which motives drive Gabriel Tosh to rebel against Minsk and to seek Terrazine gas? Yeah.
Again, I don't want to spoil too much of the plot for folks that might not be familiar with it, but he's driven by a number of things. I think a disillusionment with what's happening with the Emperor and the Ghost program, and what happened with again if readers are familiar with the Ghost Academy series of manga, there's a story there that plays out that has a major bearing on this book. On his backstory, on Tosh's backstory, and what happened to all of them. It's suffice to say he's disillusioned. His eyes have been opened, and he feels that there needs to be a major change. That what's happening is not right, and that people are getting taken advantage of, and that he needs to help set things straight.
Cool. Did you use elements from the StarCraft Ghost Academy manga then in the Nova novel to develop the plot for Spectres?
Yeah, definitely. I read, I wasn't, coming into this, I made a decision, right away that, I was going to write my book, but, I wanted to, if I was going to do this, I wanted to make sure that I knew as much as possible. I just immersed myself in the StarCraft universe and learned as much as I could from fans and from Wiki and from Blizzard and everybody involved, and that included reading everything I could get my hands on that had been done before. So I spent several months just really immersing myself in the StarCraft world, and that was essential. I mean, I had to know the backstory. I had to know the characters in detail. I had to know what happened to them and why they were who they were.
in order to write the best book I could. And once I got a handle on all that stuff and felt like I pulled out some important elements from these past projects and the universe itself, I felt much more comfortable being able to write a book that I felt was mine, within the StarCraft universe, but was had my voice in it too and had the things in it that I wanted to do. I felt comfortable doing that because I had the backstory down, and I felt really, I felt confident.
Yeah, with all of that said, you were talking about, going through the backstory and really making sure that you got the characters down pat. Do you feel that fans would need to read the previous material in order to follow the storyline of Spectres?
I don't think so, and that was another major goal for all of us, and certainly for me writing it. I wanted to write something. This was a real delicate balance, and like I said before, I haven't done media tie-in before, so this was a real challenge for me. It was fun, but I wanted to find a balance between offering the more hardcore fans what they wanted. Some great backstory, some great detail and color from the universe itself, without bogging down too much in that stuff, so that anybody could pick it up and read it, even people who weren't familiar with the game at all, and just get something out of it, just as a pure adrenaline kind of fun ride, in the universe that is certainly fully fleshed out, but that somebody can just get dropped into and enjoy without having to have all that backstory.
Great. I think this is my last question I have here, and I'm probably going to get yelled at. I'm probably not going to pronounce this name right. It was a question that was just submitted to me. A few years ago, we asked Mike Nielsen at the UMOJAN, UMOJAN, had their own Ghost program. Are we going to see this topic in Spectres at all?
It's touched upon. Trying to remember exactly. It's touched upon. It's not a major element, and that was intentional, for many reasons that I don't want to get into. But yes, there is certainly a reference to that.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you'd like the fans to know about Spectre, or anything about your work that you're currently doing?
Definitely. I first of all want to say I'm really excited about this book. It's whenever I write a book, any of my stuff that I do, there's usually an element like you go in, you're excited, and it's a blank slate, and you feel like you've got a handle on what you want to do, and then by the end of it, you feel like you did some things right, and some things you didn't quite get right, and you wanted to redo it. And this one I feel really good about. I'm excited about it. I think the story's a lot of fun. I think it brings in a lot of classic StarCraft elements, and I think it's one of the intents in doing this was to write just something that was just action packed and drove the story forward from page one to the end, and I think we did it, and I think it's I hope that the fans embrace it and check it out, because I think they're going to have fun with it. And in terms of other stuff, I've just finished a Diablo novel. I'm really excited about that, and that'll be out early next year sometime, and it'll be a big release, and it's going to be I'm not sure how much I could say on that one yet, but it's going to be a really fun book and a big book, so I'm excited about that one. And that's about it.
Yeah, I'd have to say I'm probably really excited about any Diablo books that are going to be coming out anytime soon. It's definitely my game of choice right now. Thanks a lot for talking with us here at BlizzPlanet. I really appreciate it. I
had a blast.
Appreciate you taking time out to talk with us about the book.
Absolutely. I had fun. They were great questions, so thanks a lot.